district, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden, they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's a... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
What is up, Fantasy Land? We are back in the district, and welcome back to all our fellow goats who follow us on the weekly. And to any new people showing up, we appreciate you coming in. Drop the subscribe button, drop the like. You're here because you like to win. And Dan, one way we do that is by bringing in the monster guests. We bring in the biggest winners, the best analysts in Fantasy Land. And Dan, tonight is no different.
Absolutely. Yes. We've got it back for repeat engagement. Find out how exactly he's doing so far this year and get all of his secrets before the waivers run this week, right? Chris is going to be giving those up for us, isn't he?
I'm going to try, boys. I can't give it all up.
No pressure. Yeah.
No. I'm an open book here, guys. And hey, listen, it's great to be back. Big fan of the show, and let's get it rocking here. But you guys do a great job week in and week out, bringing the industry, great guest, and hopefully I can follow in that long line of a great guest for you. So let's get it rocking, boys.
No, happy to have you back on, Chris.
I was gonna say to Theo, he missed the great words that Chris was giving us coming in, especially talking about our guests. And like Dan was pointing out, Theo is a big part of that. Dan and Theo have been bringing in some monsters this offseason, and Theo's on a roll, man. We just let him go. He just had a new name and someone even more impressive every time. And Chris, you're back for a reason. We had you in the offseason. You brought a lot of goodness, and tonight is no different. So guys, let's get into the goodness. Week 6, right? Week 6, you have a better feeling of, you should know by now, is my team a contender, or do I need to start thinking about 2022 and beyond? So Chris, I'll go to you first. And for those who don't know, NFFC Hall of Famer right here, writer for The Athletic, just a monster in the high stakes games as well. After 5 weeks, Chris, give us an idea. How are your teams doing? How's the portfolio performing so far?
Yeah, guys, it's a little bit of an up and down. Across the board, I wish I was a little higher. Just battling some injuries to some early round draft picks, trying to overcome that. Middle of the pack, I'd say most leagues have some up top, some down low, and the rest in the middle. So it's a little scattered all around. I wish it was consistently up top, but I've got to be honest, it's it's been a roller coaster for the first 5 weeks. I'll say that much.
You already got some hero throwing in the Robbie Anderson. Should we drop him? Sabotage drop.
Hey, Robbie Anderson's is a big part of my roller coaster start. So,
right.
He was there.
He was somebody I was definitely heavily invested in, and his butt is planted firmly on my bench right now. But we'll get to Robbie, I think, a little bit later too.
Tough name.
Yeah, this will be like a good group therapy, like Robbie Anderson therapy session for all of us.
I'll lead the session. The only place I have Robbie Anderson is the team I own with Dan. I think we have one share, right, Dan? In is it PNV?
I've only talked to you into one share of Robbie Anderson.
That's it, man. That's all I got, brother. DJ Moore and Terrence Marshall or bust, basically on when it comes to those receivers with Darnold. But last week we had a Beeb on here, and the first and 15th duo were in here again, dropping some goodness, and we talked about coming off of kind of these 5 weeks. What is one of the biggest adjustments that you've had to make? As different than kind of what you came into the season. What's a tweak that you've made so far?
Well, I'll jump in there. I know one of them is I really thought that, we were going to get some good volume out of Seattle's offense. And so I was jumping in heavily, and their pace is just terrible. And that's really bringing everything down. And of course, with Russell Wilson getting hurt too, that's just going to make it all the worse. So, Tyler Lockett, DJ Metcalf, even Chris Carson. I mean, the whole Seattle offense has just not been what we were hoping for. And so one of the things adjustments I've had to make is just kind of trying to find other alternatives, when you're counting on those being key pieces for your team.
Yeah, I mean, as for me, you say, Dan, Seattle's hurting you, but right off the bat, I was heavily invested in Jerry Jeudy this year.
Oh, yeah.
He's on, I want to say 75% of my teams across the board. So, boom, week 1 starts off, and he makes it barely through a couple quarters, and all of a sudden I lost my 4th round draft pick that I moved up in a lot of my high stakes draft to get my hands on him. And, you guys know when we went live in the main events those last 2 weeks, wide receivers were flying up the board. Jerry Jeudy went from a 6th to a 5th to a 4th round draft pick. And that was one of the guys. If you were on the back end in NFFC drafts, if you were on the back end of the draft in that 9 to 12 range, you had to wait, till the end of the 4th round, and the wide receivers were gone at that point. So a lot of times, luckily for me, at that time, I thought Jeudy was the guy for me. And now right off the bat, I had to overcome putting my 4th round draft pick on all my benches and going into my fantasy bench and hoping that my depth pays off for these first 5 weeks. So that I had to overcome that, and the tight end conundrum right here. We're mixing and matching every week. We're looking for somebody to put in our tight end slot. If you didn't get one of the big 6 tight ends, and you weren't lucky enough to get Schultz or Knox off of the waiver wire early here, you're scrambling and just praying for 7-8 fantasy points out of these tight ends every week.
Yeah, I think that was a great point about Jerry Jeudy. I think this season's really been kind of a roll with the punches type season. I mean, we talk about injuries every single year, but George Kittle got me. I ended up with more of him actually in NFFC than in FFPC, so I didn't spend the extremely early draft capital, but it still hurts. AJ Brown, I expected a lot more out of. Obviously the injuries, I'm still very hopeful for him, but you see some insane usage out of guys like Allen Robinson, things that we couldn't have possibly foreseen. The guy sitting here with, we thought he'd have 150 targets this year. He looks like he's going to have 100. I think that's a great point with Jeudy. It's a rolling with the punches type season. And I think it's also it's a season where you need to be hardened enough to kind of abandon ship. I think, with guys like Brandon Ayuk, being willing to bench him right away, save guys wins and losses. We see the same thing potentially coming up with Allen Robinson. You have to make hard decisions. Sunken cost and draft capital needs to go out the window this season. It's just kind of a new ball game.
Yeah, Theo, you mentioned another guy I could have easily have said besides Jerry Jeudy, AJ Brown, because that was my guy. And I was second round. I mean, my 2 heavily most owned players maybe were AJ Brown and Jerry Jeudy at the wide receiver position early on in drafts. So I'm trying to overcome that. Hopefully we get Jeudy back in the next couple of weeks. He's supposed to be, supposedly ahead of his timetable, looking good. I'm not expecting him until week 8. If I get him back week 8, if you would have told me that in week 1, hey, he'll be there for you and looking good in week 8, I'll sign up right off the bat. As for AJ Brown, I had a talk with a friend about AJ Brown, trying to talk him off the cliff. I'm not worried about AJ Brown. AJ Brown's numbers are going to be there. The kid's a complete freak. Has it been the perfect first 5 weeks if you drafted A.J. Brown? Absolutely not. It's been a horror show for all of us. We had to eat that 0 when he got the hamstring injury early in the first quarter of a game. Those are always the worst. I'm sure all you 3 guys have tried to, have dealt with those this year also. It seems like so many players are leaving early in games that have been in my fantasy lineup. And those 0s and 1s and 2s are tough to overcome, on a weekly basis when guys are leaving you. I can deal with an injury, but at least get me 3/4 of production in or something before you leave. Don't give me the first minute of the game injury and leave me with 0s, because it's a trickle-down effect. If you have that one player, I'm pretty much heavily owned on the same group of players. So when you take a 0 or a couple points from one player, it's affecting 7, 8, 12 teams straight down the line, and that's tough.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure.
Yeah. And I think that was a great call with A.J. Brown turning around. This past week, he was still, coming off the injury. He still gets the most targets on the team, albeit 5. But I think the narrative for AJ would be a little different right now if he would have simply got in the end zone. He took that hard hit right at the goal line. If he would have just got in there, I think people would have been a little more fired up. But I think he's the kind of guy that Abib last week brought up a great point about how this year maybe is the year where a team that starts slow can turn it around, especially even in the high-stakes leagues. And AJ seems like the kind of guy who could reel off, a few 25-point weeks in a row and really get right.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Guys, how are you with the A.J. Brown, Terry McLaurin, and Justin Jefferson? How did you guys have those 3 at that end of the second round when they were all paired together? Did you guys have Jefferson ahead of A.J. Brown or the other way around?
AJ ahead. I think all 3 of us had AJ ahead. No.
Yeah, I had AJ ahead, but I did take Jefferson and McLaurin in some places too. Either just because that's what fell to me, or just to kind of diversify out.
Same tier, right? Similar tiers, so you can mix them up easily, especially in those best balls.
Absolutely.
I ended up AJ for me. By the time we were drafting the high stakes leagues, I was so overweight on him with the early drafts that we pivoted a little bit. Dan and I on a team we split have Justin Jefferson in a main event FFPC league. But yeah, I ended up with some AJ Brown, and I wish I had more Terry McLaurin. He looks like an absolute star right now. And it wasn't so much that I didn't like Terry. It was I preferred CeeDee Lamb to him slightly, and a couple other guys like that. So I have a lot of Terry McLaurin in Dynasty, but when it comes to redraft, man, I wish I had a lot more. He looks just awesome. But I think at the end of the day, all 3 of those guys are going to produce. Right now, we might say, Justin Jefferson, Terry McLaurin ahead, but a couple weeks from now, like we talked about, AJ might be right there.
Yeah, and the Titans are going to be playing Buffalo and Kansas City their next 2 games, so hopefully that's going to force them into passing a little bit more and make A.J. Brown a bigger part of the game plan. So I'm all about that.
Yeah, his time's coming. His time is coming. Yeah.
It's all about differentiating, right? You talk about Ayuk, and then you talk about AJ Brown. Who's the big buy, who's the screaming buy, and who's maybe in a redraft. You start reconsidering even leaving space for on your bench in some cases. So I think AJ Brown is a screaming buy. What do you guys think about Ayuk? Is he in Dynasty a good buy right now? With I feel like his price can't get any lower, but is this just a catching a falling knife type of situation?
Yeah, I mean, I would buy him if you can get him for a decent price. I don't know if his owner is totally willing to, give him up for less than what he spent.
Second?
Yeah, if I could get him for a second, I'd take it.
Yeah, me too.
So,
okay.
I tell you what, it's scary though. I mean, there's been some bust in the top 100, but I think the 2 biggest busts in the top 100, both reside in San Francisco this year with Ayuk and Trey Sermon.
Right.
I mean, never mind, scratch the top 100. They were both top 75 when we went live the last couple weeks. And boy, oh boy, those are just 2, bottomless pits right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Elijah Mitchell is just he's stolen Sermon's soul right now.
To come back after being out a couple of weeks and dominate the touches in the backfield the way he did, I mean, it's a wrap for Trey Sermon. You could forget about him. I think for the rest of the season.
And guys, does it not just prove once again in those cloudy backfields, guys, just take the cheapest guy. Why spend up so much? Once in a while, if you're doing big volume, you want to mix it up, but we see it every year, man, in these type of backfields. We saw it in New England for years. You take the cheapest guy in the draft, and it usually pays off. And Elijah Mitchell, especially in those dynasty rookie drafts, I mean, he was free, literally free.
No, I mean, he was free in redraft too.
And in redraft.
We got to remember Raheem Mostert was, was in the picture. We've all forgotten about him already because he went down in the first half of the first game also. Sorry if that noise just came in there. But, he comes in, he goes out first half. I would still love to know. I had a good amount of shares of Mostert as like an RB3 on a lot of my high stakes teams just because of the builds that I had. And then you get into that, round 9 and you're like, all right, I only got 2 backs on my team here. Who's looking, you know what? Let me invest in that San Francisco backfield. People who were down on Mostert coming in. Let's throw him on as a 3. And he got only a couple carries in that first game, but he looked good. And who knows what he could have been? He could have been the Mitchell of fantasy this year, but Sermon wasn't the answer. I know that much.
And I think he would have too.
Yeah, I think I agree with you guys, and I think it's kind of like Judy. You lost him so early, but Judy was on track to have a 13 target game at to start out the season, and it was just but I think that they were committed to Mostert, and then the back that was most like him is Mitchell, and Mitchell gets to work. So yeah, I agree with you. Trey Sermon is complete dust, especially when Jeff Wilson comes back. We might even see, some inactive Trey Sermon days coming up.
Yeah. And that's just, a knife in the heart too. Like you bring up Theo, because, Judy comes out, he had 7 catches, I think, through like the first 2.5 quarters of that opening game. And I'm like, hey, this is going to pay off big. I was right about this one. We're going to be wrong about a lot of players, but after watching how that offense was working and how he was, I said, all right, hey, I'm loving my wide receiver 3 here on my teams. And I was looking, all right, it's going to be a 100 catch guy and be the stud that I thought he would be. And then he goes down. So, hopefully he picks up where he left off, when he gets back in a couple of weeks here.
Yeah. I have some teams that could definitely use him.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a few of my best ball teams with Sutton and Judy on them just because of where they were going, where it was ridiculous value. Which was an easy stack when you threw Bridgewater in there.
Yeah, that's going to be a really nice pass offense, Denver, in a couple of weeks when Judy gets back. Now that Tim Patrick has established himself yet again this year as a legit wide receiver, to have Sutton and Patrick out there with Judy in the slot and a decent tight end and Noah Fant there, that's a big time pass offense. And the kid Javonte Williams is coming on big time. That's a big time buy. For me in trading leagues to try and get him for the second half of the season.
I completely agree. He looks just awesome. Dan before the season made a great call that he thought that Javonte Williams was going to be an absolute star. It was one of Dan's bold calls towards the end of the summer. I think he liked him more than any other rookie backs long term, and he certainly looks like that. Every time he touches the ball, it looks like he's going to house it. I think that offense is definitely trending up. And this week they could potentially put a number on Las Vegas.
Yeah, when they move Gordon out of town after this year, I think Williams will be a top 25, top 30 overall pick in redraft next year going into next season. He's the real deal.
Yep, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think, just going back to the San Francisco backfield, what's going to be a little bit interesting there is just, we saw how many carries that Trey Lance got, and if Garoppolo is back in as the starting quarterback, those carries are going to have to go somewhere. So
that's a good point.
And I think probably some of those might end up going back to Sermon, so I don't think all hope is totally lost for Sermon, but he's at best a very back end of the roster stash, but Mitchell is the guy who probably stands to benefit the most even from that. So even though he had, Mitchell had a dusted Sermon, he still had to contend with Trey Lance this past week, and that won't be the case after the bye, most likely. So, I think when the bye week is up and we're talking week 7 and San Francisco's back in play, I'm probably going to be putting Elijah Mitchell in a lot of places in a flex position.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
Where are you guys standing on Trey Lance now? Is that the lottery ticket we can rip up, or did he blow his chance? And I mean, I don't think he was as bad as everybody seems. The other day, got 89 rushing yards, and for a fantasy quarterback, I mean, that's huge. But
yeah, and he got just stoned with the goal
line. I think they're going back to Jimmy G, and who knows when we'll see Lance again.
I think for me, Lance is, if he's a starting quarterback in the particular week and you're streaming quarterbacks and you have a chance to use him, he's a guy you have to consider, just because, like you said, the rushing upside is so immense with him. But he certainly didn't look as good as I thought he was going to look. I kind of had higher expectations, for Trey Lance. So definitely a streamer, but not necessarily like, before the year, it was like he was one of the guys shooting up as well, where people thought he had, top 5, top 6 potential, even as a rookie. So I don't foresee that, but I do think he could be useful down the stretch.
I was just going to throw in, I don't have a lot of Lance, and if I did invest, it was never for 2021. I was higher on Jimmy G coming into the season than most. I own him as a QB3 in a lot of dynasties, super flex for that reason. That offense works with Jimmy G running it, and he fits that offense well. And when guys are healthy and the pieces are there to help them, that offense looks good. So for me, I just was not invested for 2021. I have him on one dynasty team, and it's a team I'm not competing with this year. So that's kind of how I approached it. So that doesn't change for me. Debo is a guy that benefited nicely. We talked about Ayuk in the backfield, but I don't know. I don't know that we see Lance in 2021 like significant winning, type of piece on your dynasty team or on your fantasy team. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and redraft. I mean, I think you've hopefully got a better quarterback than Lance. However you were starting the rest of the season. Hopefully is a good quarterback. And then now you've got to think about, well, who's my backup? Because it's probably not going to be Lance, So if you're talking about a redraft, I mean, Lance is really almost got to be your third quarterback. And, when you're talking about a third quarterback, unless you just don't have much confidence in your first and second quarterback, there's no need for a third quarterback. So I think for the most part, he's kind of droppable in redraft, unless you're just really, struggling to get anything together at quarterback. The guy who was more interesting for me, just because he was more polished as a prospect, was Justin Fields, who hasn't looked a ton better than Lance, but for different reasons. It's like Fields kind of, he's got two things going on. Number one, Matt Nagy hasn't put together a very good offense around him, and just the scheme doesn't really seem to fit his strengths. He's not running them, which would help him out a lot. It doesn't seem to be rolling him out even that much. And, the other thing is Justin Fields' clock in his head is more like, I don't know what it is. It's like it's an hourglass at least.
It just seems like the narrative on these rookie quarterbacks, particularly Fields and Lance, changed so quick, where if you remember at the end of August, early September in these main events, people were taking Trey Lance as the 11th or 12th quarterback off the board as a lottery ticket. Fields not too far after. So everybody was invested in these two guys, saying, all right, I'll draft a Kirk Cousins, a couple rounds later, but I'm taking Fields and Lance off the board first. I'll wait a couple weeks until one of these guys, if not both of them, takes over and takes my fantasy team to the glory land, into paradise. I think we're going 0 for 2 here, guys, in the fantasy world. I mean, Fields, at least we know that he'll be on the field, going forward, than naming him the quarterback. But I'm concerned with Trey Lance if you invested in him, to be that league-winning type quarterback. And Fields, like you guys said, it hasn't been, rosy the first couple weeks now with him. He needs to run more. We need to see some volume. They're not even letting him throw enough. So, it's ugly so far.
But Dan, just agree with me or not, before you throw him away, go find the Jimmy G owner, or go find the Russell Wilson owner, or go find, the owner whose quarterback is hurting right now and maybe still contending or has a chance. And even, there's still guys who still believe, that are still going to hold on. So before you, just kind of let go, see if you can get a little something.
If you can trade and redraft, that's definitely the way to go. If you're talking about dynasty, I'm still holding on both of those quarterbacks.
For sure.
I have a lot less long-term worries about them. I mean, I think we got a little bit spoiled with, some of the quarterbacks who've come through on the rookie years.
Yeah, it's been 5 weeks. 5 weeks.
Yeah. And you know what? And this year, it's just not working out like that. You just got to, in redraft, you just have to accept it and move on. But holding on to, those guys is like, you're holding on to a fully scratched off lottery ticket that is a loser. And the only reason you're holding on to it is because you heard there was going to be like some kind of second chance thing where you could send in your bum lottery tickets and, one person wins or something. It's just not happening. So, just get over it and, more than likely drop them.
Guys, you're watching right now, huge show with Chris on. Only price of admission is just to smash the like button. It's super easy. It takes a millisecond. You can ask your 3-year-old to do it. Well, if your 3-year-old's up right now, that's probably not good, but just saying it doesn't take a lot of effort and it's much appreciated. Good way to support the show. Chris, is there someone that you whiffed on? We're still close enough. I think this is probably the last week we'll ask this question, but is there someone that you whiffed on? This was Dan's question actually from last year, and I kind of stole it and stuck it in here because I thought it was good. Just adding, like, and when you consider that player, was it good process, bad outcome? How do you see that?
When I think of players so far through 5 weeks that I whiffed on, the two biggest names that come to mind for me is one guy that I own a ton of and one guy I own none of, and they're both regrets for me. Let's start with the guy we talked about at the top of the show, Robbie Anderson. Mm-hmm. 6th round Robbie Anderson was an auto for me. And you could look at it two ways. I had 3 guys at my receiver. Yeah, exactly. I had 3 guys at the wide receiver position. That was always my pick. If you look straight across my board, 6th round pick was Antonio Brown, Tyler Boyd, and Robbie Anderson. So if you look at the 3 of them, Antonio Brown so far through 5 weeks, huge hit. Robbie Anderson through 5 weeks, huge miss, and Tyler Boyd somewhere in the middle. So, I guess my Brown teams are doing really good. And my Robbie Anderson teams are struggling. So the process, no. I mean, I can't honestly say. I'm still dumbfounded, guys. I really am. Robbie Anderson, each week I keep throwing him out there. I know I got to try and I walk away and have that, that gambler's mentality of being like, hey, that's it. I got to stop going back to the well. But now I look up this week and I'm like, oh, my God, he's playing the Vikings secondary. What am I going to do? Sit him out? And then there's nothing worse than finally giving up on the guy, sitting him out, and then he drops that 25.
It's going to happen.
Board, and you're on the sideline for the first time. So you keep going back to the well. It's the toughest thing we deal with in fantasy when we have a lemon on our hands. What do? When do we give up? When do we call it quits?
Dan, is this is where we implement Dan's, don't put him in until he proves it to you. Right, Dan? Mm-hmm. Like until he proves that he belongs in the starting lineup. And I think about that often now. Dan said that to me a couple of times. And does this apply here?
It's a little bit tough, for exactly the reasons why Chris was talking about. You're looking at the target volume that Robbie Anderson had, and he had 29%, 21% the last 2 weeks. And you look at target volume like that, and it's tough to leave a receiver who's getting that kind of volume out of your lineup. Now if you're talking about a Brandon Ayuk, yeah, I'm not putting him in until I see a couple good weeks. But Robbie Anderson, it's a little bit tougher to sit him, especially if you don't have any other really good alternatives. You know, if you're stacked at receiver, yeah, put him on your bench. But if you're not stacked at receiver, I think, you know, you probably have to put him in there against,
especially as your 3, as Chris has him. You know,
Yeah.
you want him to hit big on a few weeks as your 3. You're not expecting him every week. So
That's a great point by Dan. The stats could lie to us, but the utilization is what it is. So if a guy's running routes, he's playing snaps, he's getting targets, you know, the weeks should come. And I think it's important this year for people to look at those sort of things. I mean, the Robert Woods hysteria was kind of put to bed, you know, pretty quickly with his last game. And I think it was people kind of knew that was coming with the utilization. But yeah, with Ayuk, it's you don't have anything to hang your hat on. It's really scary how quickly he faded.
Yeah. And just to jump back in, you know, I don't want to, you know, so with Robbie Anderson, yeah, I don't know what to do. I'm going to keep rolling him out there. I would have gave up on him after that Thursday nighter in Houston, but then, you know, McCaffrey comes out of the offense. I say, all right, well, they got to go to Robbie Anderson. When you look at the Panthers offense in a whole, I mean, Terrace Marshall hasn't, you know, really come on quick. It's like, how many times can you just keep feeding DJ Moore without getting a second wide receiver involved? But like Dan said, the targets are there, 18 targets over the last 2 weeks. Everything is there except the production, you know? So it's one of those tough situations, but enough with Robbie Anderson. He's got my stomach turned enough. The other one that my biggest regret is Marquise Hollywood Brown, not going back to him and just getting some pieces of him, especially where he was going, 10th round. You know, you could have put him. I could have put him on a bunch of teams as my 5th or 6th wide receiver, taking that shot. But I sat out. You know, they bring in, they draft Bateman in the 1st round. I look at that. I say, okay, you know, could be their top guy after Mark Andrews. We all know that's the top guy. And then they bring over Sammy Watkins for $5 million. I said, okay, they're just pushing Marquise Hollywood Brown down the pecking order a little bit, or he's got to share a lot of the pie in a heavy run offense, you know? Well, 5 weeks later, Hollywood Brown is the guy that I went all in on last year, that I was hoping for. So that's an 0 for 2, you know?
Yeah, I did the same thing. I just didn't get enough of Hollywood Brown this year. I think I just have him on 1 or 2 of my redraft teams. I got him on a couple dynasty teams, but yeah, my redraft's just not nearly enough.
Do you think this keeps up? I mean, I think it's a perfect storm, to be honest with you, because, you know, I was having this conversation with a friend too. You know, the defense is not what we thought. This team's going to be playing in high scoring games. Defense is not the Ravens defense that people think in their brains anymore. You know, that, and take away that this team has no run game. You know, they're not a good running team. So when Marquise Brown's, you know, was positioned on the draft board all summer long, that was with them, everybody thinking that, you know, we had the Ravens had a good, strong running game behind them and that they'd be a heavy run team. But, you know, that thing fell apart real quick with the injuries, you know, to Dobbins and then to Gus Edwards. And all of a sudden, here we are. We're a passing offense now, and Hollywood at the top of the pecking order. So the market never corrected late in draft season on Hollywood. He should have been moved up multiple rounds. People are getting an absolute steal right now, and these are the guys you're seeing at the top of leaderboards. There's people with 10th, 11th round Hollywood Browns on their team.
Yeah, I actually do think it keeps up. I think he looks fantastic. And the fact that they go to him, he had the one game where he left a lot of points on the board. You know, he could potentially be even higher if he catches 2 of those touchdown passes. So yeah, I think it's a classic 3rd-year breakout, and you know, we saw him flash as a rookie, disappointed as a sophomore, and you know, he looks like a wide receiver 1 right now.
Yeah, and he did kind of quietly put it together at the end of last year. He strung together quite a few good games. So
that was huge.
He was like wide receiver 20, I think, over the last 6. So he kind of gave us a hint. And then I think that we kind of got away from it. And, yeah, he's going to have tremendous win rates. I mean, 2 of the best win rates right now are the 3rd-year wide receivers, Debo and Hollywood Brown.
It's another stigma with us fantasy players is we don't want to get burned again. We don't want to go back to the well. Some of us are like, all right, hey, listen, it's a new season. We'll go back to the well. But some people are like, hey, listen, I don't want to get too close to the stove again. So a lot of people had buyer's remorse with Brown coming into this season. And the people that went back in on him and said, hey, we're going right back to the well, they're benefiting.
Yeah, and I think my main problem too is I was just not really targeting wide receiver where he was going in the draft, and that's something that I still need to get better at, is just making sure I'm switching up my strategy enough where I have a few teams that are targeting players from each position at different points in the draft, so I'm not consistently locked in on rounds 3, 4, 5, 6, I'm getting wide receivers all the time. Save a couple of teams where I'm doing something different there, and then grabbing wide receivers in the 9th and 10th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. Like Mike Williams is another one I didn't pick up that much in redraft, and I would have loved to have gotten more of him, but I just wasn't really targeting wide receiver where he was going in the draft.
Mm-hmm. For me, it was simple. And for those who listen to the show, the two offenses I kept repeating all offseason that were huge values were Baltimore and Denver. I've said it on this show maybe every single week. And to me, that meant Bateman. I mean, we haven't seen it yet, but I'm highly invested in Dynasty. It meant Lamar Jackson, especially in Superflex. Mark Andrews. I mean, I told you guys before we came on air, I won a lot of Dynasty weeks last night with those two guys. A lot of them were, kind of dirty, coming back with 40 some points to take it. But this offense was just, they invested in Bateman. All the signs were there. And for me, that meant investing in Hollywood, even though, Chris, like you said, there was a bit of burnage last year. But Dan, you keyed in on something that I was looking at and how they finished off the season and how much Hollywood was involved in that. And it wasn't like a 1 or 2 game off. It was consistent, for a chunk of the games at the end there. Maybe we'll look up the exact stats with regards to targets and what he did. But those are some things that I looked at. And I just found this offense as a whole was really good value coming in the season, and it's paying off so far.
Yeah, and I'm really interested to see what Bateman's going to bring into this offense, because if he's the real deal and he's like a Kadarius Toney type where he injects life into this offense even more, and he looks, and I love the kid in the summertime. So if he comes in and hits the ground running, gives them another weapon besides Andrews and Brown out there, well, the great for Bateman, but for me, someone that is all invested in Lamar Jackson as his top owned quarterback, sky's the limit. We're talking QB1 here in my eyes. Hopefully I've had a great 5 weeks in terms of quarterback play. Who knows what Bateman could take Lamar Jackson to?
Yeah, that would be pretty nice to see.
Guys, let's look forward now a bit. We've talked about what's happened in the first 5 weeks. Let's look forward now. Chris, I'll come back to you. Who's someone that's, looking forward that you're kind of lining up? I know, as we were prepping for this show, the Colts offense is looking pretty nice in the next few weeks. Is there an individual player or a player or two that you like that maybe our audience can go out there and whether it's trade for or pick up or whatever it is to maybe soup up for the next few weeks?
JD took the words right out of my mouth, because number one on my list is Michael Pittman. And I'm a heavily owned Michael Pittman owner. We talk about where we were in certain draft and on the board and players we targeted. Well, my top 2 targets in that 7th, 8th, 9th round range at the receiver position was Mike Williams and Mike Pittman. Nice. And Williams, we all know what he's doing. And Pittman now, after a rough couple weeks, I was worried about him. I said, all right, maybe this isn't the right pick here, but I think he's going to turn this on and be that wide receiver 1 that I was hoping for when I drafted him, in a lot of leagues. So you look at their schedule for Pittman. We're talking the Texans, the Niners, the Titans, the Jets, and the Jags. The next 5 weeks, we're talking 5 bad secondaries here. Pittman's starting to get it going. I'm hoping that T.Y. Hilton, doesn't hurry back. And even if he does, take a back seat, Hilton. He's no longer the one on this team in this offense. Pittman is the guy. He's established himself as the one. Let's take off and run. And you want to talk indie offense, I'd be buying all the Jonathan Taylor shares going forward. I know some people will fight back on that one. Yeah, that's true. Maybe. Here's my thought process with the Colts backfield. People will say, all right, Taylor only got 52% of the work last night in that backfield, and we saw way too much Marlon Mack than we were hoping for. I think that was a complete showcase game for Marlon Mack, and they're going to put him on the move. And I mean, the Colts organization has to be thrilled with what Mack put out there on the field and how he looked, because now they can actually get something for him and move him out of town. For sure. And guys, I don't mean to interrupt this. I know I want Theo and Dan, but we asked the people to bring the questions tonight, and the chat is live. We're just rolling, man. This is one of these where we've barely touched the show sheet even, because it's the goodness is just flowing. But we're gonna hit some questions as we go here, just so we don't get too far behind. If that's cool with you guys. So our buddy Shrikant is asking, Hunter Henry, RSJ, Ingram, Darnold are available in waivers. Which do you target dropping? Conklin? Question mark. He only has $13 left in FOB, 1 PPR. Chris, I'll go to you first. All right. So I don't know if my answer is going to be what everyone else is, but I am very, very high on Dan Arnold going forward for this Jags offense. And some people might look at the 4 names that he's got here and have Arnold as their 4. I have no argument too if Hunter Henry is the choice here. He's looking like a top 10 tight end and the top guy for the Patriots over Jonnu Smith, who's been a complete bust. But for me, I just see second half of the year in this Jags offense, Dan Arnold playing a huge role, and I picked him up for a couple bucks across the board in a lot of my leagues. So I can only advise the same for our friend here. Yeah, and I'm gonna go right along with that. I think Arnold is definitely the one to target. The nice thing is we've got 4 options here, and they all have something to recommend them. And if you're short on Fab, this is one of those places where I like to go in with just small bids and just put them in the order I like them. But I'm not putting out a big bid on any one of these guys, because I'm going to be, I think, pretty happy with whoever I get. Probably Ricky Seals-Jones is going to be my number 4 pick, just because we hope Logan Thomas comes back after the injury. But Hunter Henry, he's been starting to pick up a target share in that offense. Evan Ingram, I mean, we know what's going on with the Giants receivers. I mean, is there anybody left? It's like Kadarius Toney and Ross, and if Ingram can jump back into that, that's good too. But yeah, Dan Arnold is probably the number 1 there, because I mean, the one thing that the Jags have shown us is they're targeting the tight end no matter who is there. I mean, it's just basically, whoever is filling that spot in the lineup, they're getting the targets. So I like Arnold a lot there, and they traded away a really good player to get him too. I'm blanking on his name, but that cornerback they traded. Henderson. Henderson, who was their first round draft pick. I mean, they gave up on him pretty quick. So right, exactly. They definitely did. Dan, I just want to jump in and say one thing, because I heard it the other day, and it makes complete sense as we talk about tight ends and Evan Ingram specifically here. Max Williams goes down for the Cardinals this week, and he's out for the season. Evan Ingram, who I'm 99% sure, maybe you guys could back me up on this, is on the last year of his deal here in New York. Yeah. What a time to be alive if you're Arizona. Pick up the phone, call the New York Giants, offer them a 6th round draft pick, or I don't care what you give us as a Giant fan, and go put Evan Ingram on the Arizona Cardinals. And I'd like that a lot. So keep that in mind. We like to always speculate with trades and everything like that. Maybe Evan Ingram gets moved to Arizona and plays tight end for the Cardinals' high-powered offense the rest of the season.
That would be good stuff for Kyler.
we're move over Steve Keim. We're gonna put Chris in the GM chair for the Cardinals and let him go to work. I like it.
So I'll agree with Dan. It's actually a very good week to add a tight end in a lot of these home leagues. Hunter Henry looks like he's taken a step forward. He would probably be my pick, but I'm also intrigued by Arnold. I was able to add him to a bunch of FFPC teams, so I'm happy about that. And Ricky Seals-Jones, it might be a short period of time, but he could have an absolutely monster usage game this weekend against Kansas City. He's kind of a fun streamer for this weekend. He had 8 targets last game. The wide receivers are banged up there. They're going to have to play, keep up with Chiefs. It looks like it could be a sneaky game for him. I think he's a tight end 1 this week.
I don't think Ertz will end up there just because didn't Goddard just go on IR?
Yeah, and terrible timing too. I mean, with Tampa Bay coming to town in their secondary, which Goddard would have probably, this had 7 for 70 and a touchdown written all over Dallas Goddard this week. But unfortunately, we got to hit the wire.
Yeah. Dan, I'm going to go back to you really quick to that tight end question, because you take pride in your lining up these 4 guys, small bids. So if you're our boy Reddy here with the $15 or the $13 in Fab, how are you playing this? How are you lining these bids? What's the amounts per? Like, are you putting 13 on your favorite guy and then 111? Are you doing just 111? Like, how are you approaching it?
I'm probably going to put 2 on Arnold and Henry, and let's see, who else did we have there? And
Ricky Seals,
probably 2 on all of them except for RSJ. I'll put 1 on RSJ. I might put 2 on all of them. Just kind of see who drops. Because I feel like if I'm bidding on all 4 of those guys, and especially since it's 1 PPR, it's not tight end premium. I think probably at least one of those guys is going to slip through the cracks this week. So you should. I
wanted to mention that because you guys know there's the huge risk of overpaying, and there's nothing worse than throwing your whole load on something and then you see like the next bid under that was 90% less than what you paid. Yeah. It's like the worst feeling in the world. So
actually, the more I think about it, I might just go single, just dollar bids, given that you only have 13 left.
It's probably enough guys. You could probably add another 2-3 guys there for $1 that, in case you miss all 4, which probably won't happen, you still hit on something to play.
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to roll the dice a little bit with those bids.
Thanks for the question, guys. Keep them coming. We will keep throwing them in here as we go. Smash the subscribe and the like, guys. Share it if you can. Not your league mates, obviously, because we're here to help you win, and all we do is help you win, obviously, on the weekly. But anyone else, friends and family, get that share button going. But anyone to add, guys, just looking ahead. I know we talked about Chris touched looking at schedule with the Colts and obviously coming off this week. Theo, do you have someone that you're kind of you're liking for the next few weeks?
Well, it's not really a guy that it's not really going to help anybody. Either you have him or you don't. But
okay, so Dan, you go ahead. No, I'm joking.
Terry McLaurin's going to smash the next 2 weeks. I think it's going to be like a showcase for him. We talked about the Kansas City game coming up. It's going to be a chance for McLaurin really to show everyone what he can do. Then they have the Packers the following week. I really like McLaurin to have two big games. But the guy who might be a little bit off the radar, who we were disappointed in a couple weeks ago, is Chase Claypool. I think with Juju going down, it's going to consolidate the target share, and I think it's a real opportunity for Claypool. There was a stat courtesy of Dwayne McFarland that when Chase Claypool saw over 25% of the targets, he was a top 18 wide receiver both weeks this year. So I think he's going to see a similar target share than that, and I think that Claypool is really going to turn it around. And we discussed A.J. Brown. I think A.J. Brown is a tremendous buy low. I'll agree with these guys on that. If you have a chance to get him in the trading league, he will turn it around. I'm very confident in that one. How about you, Dan?
Yeah, another one that I really think is just overdue is Stephon Diggs. He just really hasn't done anything big yet, but everything is there for him to just be smashing. I mean, he's getting the he's getting the routes, he's getting the targets. He just hasn't gotten in the end zone that much, and he hasn't broken any of those really long ones that he tends to break a lot of the time. So, that's one where it's like it's a little bit frustrating, but at the same time, you got to know that big days are coming.
That volcano is about to erupt, big time. And if you're a DFS player, you got to keep in the next couple of weeks, you got to keep playing Stephon Diggs, because that 9 for 180 and 2 touchdown type game is coming, because it's 5 weeks overdue already, in my opinion. And sure, he's getting Emmanuel Sanders and Dawson Knox involved in this offense to take the attention off of Diggs, which will probably help that Bills offense in the long run. Early on in the season, but now that those two guys are established as nice partners in the offense for Diggs, it's back to feeding the big dog, in these next couple weeks. So Diggs is about to explode. I just want to throw in real quick the Rams offense and the Bengals offense. These next 4 or 5 weeks, great matchups for both of them. Probably my 2 favorite offenses to invest in coming into the season. Look for all systems go. I think Stafford's a top 5 quarterback rest of the season.
Yeah. And just one more thought on Diggs. As somebody who watched him in Minnesota for years, he's going to be a squeaky wheel soon if he doesn't start getting, And
meltdown is coming. Dan, what you're saying, the meltdown on the sideline is coming. And along with Diggs, get ready for the OBJ meltdown on the sidelines, probably coming to a weekend near you real soon, because that's about to go down also.
Yeah.
Well, you got to think in the number one offense, scoring wise, that Diggs wants to be the spotlight, Right. And I mean, you think he's matured, and now that he's gone to Buffalo, he doesn't mind. They brought in Samuel, and they're spreading the wealth a bit, but. I agree, man. Dan always stealing my guy. Diggs was my guy. I think is a good buy, because he's put in like double digits, good enough numbers, but like more wide receiver 2-ish numbers. So it's frustrating, you hope that the one owner that has him is like a bit frustrated enough for you to go and have a little buy window to get yourself a legit wide receiver 1 in an amazing offense. Who's someone that's making you nervous right now, Chris? When you're setting your lineup, someone you came into the season you were super high on, and now you're, maybe your hand's shaking a bit when you're about to click the submit lineup button.
Well, a couple guys that I think I'm a little worried about right now, putting in my lineup that I have a bunch of shares of are T.J. Hawkinson and Tyler Lockett. Now with the Russell Wilson injury, I don't know what's ahead for Tyler Lockett. It was looking like wide receiver. 1 season for Tyler Lockett. He would finish as a top 12 guy. Now with Geno Smith at the helm for the foreseeable future, I guess we have to bump him down to about a wide receiver 3 territory. I really don't know what's ahead for Lockett here. So I am worried about him. I have to play him. I have to put him out there unless I have a really deep wide receiver unit. But he takes a big hit. And Hawkinson, after the first 2 weeks, I thought, hey, I got a guy that's going to make a run at Waller and Kelsey. And it's fallen. The wheels have fallen off. I don't know if it's the knee issue that he's dealing with, if he's just fighting through it and we have to eat this. But, he's not joining that elite group, after the first 2 weeks anymore. And, I got to throw out Allen Robinson's name. I was not high on Allen Robinson coming into the year, but I did, as we all do, wind up with some shares because you're in the middle of the 3rd round and, you a couple of receivers that you have, ahead of him come off the board and he's sitting there and you say, all right, you know what, listen, good old reliable, safe Allen Robinson. I may not be in love with him this year, but he's still going to be, still give me the production. I keep rolling him out there, but oh boy, this has been a mess as well. So I don't know what we do with A-Rob going, forward.
Yeah, A-Rob is one that would concern me almost the most. I talked about him a little earlier in the show, but it's shocking the style of, like Dan talked about, the style of football Chicago's playing right now. It's like 1970s football. And Allen Robinson's just not seeing the targets. It's a really, really hard guy. And the other guy for me would be Miles Sanders. He fell into that dead zone, but he looks like he could be dust by the end of the year. I'm impressed by Gainwell. I think that the natural move for the coaching staff will be finding more touches for Gainwell, who looks like he has a little more juice. He's a different kind of back than Sanders, but I have worries about Miles Sanders. He's already not producing, and I could see the usage going down a little bit.
Theo, what are they doing there in Philly? They don't run the ball at all. I've never seen an NFL team not run the ball, like, ever. It's unbelievable. And I like Miles Sanders. I luckily bailed on him this draft season, and I don't have any of them, but it's ugly there, and they just don't run the ball. So unless he becomes like this PPR JD McKissick type monster where he's catching 6-7 balls every week, I don't know. What do you do with him, Theo? Do you put him in your lineup still?
I mean, I think that it depends on your roster construction, but he's a hard guy to play even as your RB2, even as a flex. Right now, you can't really, like you said, you can't trust the usage. And I do think, the offense is not running the ball, but I think that's Sanders is certainly not showing the coaching staff that he deserves to, a bunch of carries either. So I think a little bit falls on Sanders, and I think a little bit might be the Sirianni, that's not his guy. So, yeah. I was hopeful that, a guy that got two running backs produced last year, like Taylor and Hines, would have had big time production for Sanders. I know a lot of sharp people were on Sanders, certainly heavier than I am, but it's just pretty shocking to me. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, it's hard to put him in lineups right now for sure, and it's frustrating because he has really, anytime he's been fed the ball, he's done pretty well. When you see him not performing, he's just not getting the ball for the most part. And that's what's going on this year. And, I think, some of it is just the nature of the offense, and some of it, can be the game scripts that find themselves in. It can be a little bit of an issue too, but I don't really see that changing too much, so I got to see something else. Sanders is one of those guys that, if I've got a better option or even a similar option, I'm probably going to put that other option in there and just wait and kind of see what happens with Sanders, kind of put him on notice, I guess, a little bit on my teams and see what happens.
It's just so tough because, you spend a 4th or 5th round draft pick on Miles Sanders where he was falling in that dead zone, and the running back landscape is just so poor and so bad that it's tough. If you were a heavy wide receiver team, you needed that Miles Sanders pick to work out. Mm-hmm. Guys, you really couldn't get much after the 100th pick in the draft off the board at the running back position. It's not like there were a bunch of big hits. So you have to rely on your early round, mid-round picks. And that running back dead zone was exactly that, a dead zone for these running backs so far for 5 weeks. Yes. The running back landscape is just so ugly, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse as the weeks go on, especially with injuries.
Yeah, Mixon is my guy here, is somebody that I'm having a tough time putting in lineups right now. Just because of he's hurt. I mean, last week I didn't put him in my lineups at all, even though I knew he was active. I just didn't like the situation. If you put him in, you got bailed out by that touchdown, which was nice. And, but I still felt like I made the right decision not putting him in. He
only played 18 snaps, and I'm a heavy Mixon owner, so I had a tough decision to make this weekend as well. But here's what confused me, Dan, and guys, you tell me, how good did he look on the touchdown run? Mm-hmm. Unbelievable cutback, looked as good as he ever did. Well, if you could look that good on that touchdown run, well, how about some more snaps and touches and carries? Like, what are we doing here? It's either you're good or you're not. So let's see this week. He's got another great matchup with Detroit, but the Mixon season has to start picking up going forward for sure.
It really does. I mean, it's just frustrating how they're using P. Ryan and even Evans a little bit, to steal all the receiving work. And the first week Mixon was getting all that. And then after that, now it's just like, why did that go away? It's not like he did a terrible job with it.
All right. Sorry, Theo, go ahead, brother.
No, it's very frustrating with Mixon because even we had the same issues last year where he looked great and then he would lose touches to Gio, and now it's this year, losing work to Piron. And this week I wish they would have just sat him out because it would have been a lot. I had to use him in a few spots. I wish it would have just been an easier decision for me. But it looks like Piron's going to miss this week, so like you said, it should be a good opportunity for him.
This is how much. Where's my camera? See, I'm not used to where my new camera is. As you could see, I'm looking like at the birds on the left. This is how much Mixon I have, just in case anyone wants to know.
Not a big Mixon guy, huh, JD?
When you're picking that high, show me someone who's done it consistently enough for me to invest there. I was all about the aerial game in this offense, where I was drafting Burrow. Give me all the Burrow. Give me all the Chase. Give me all the, especially T. Higgins. But the running game was not the part of this offense I really wanted, specifically when I was drafting this offseason, again, just because of the opportunity cost that was in that same range where Mixon was going. I want to go back to our chat because the questions are coming in strong here. You guys didn't answer this one already, did you? From Marcus Lynch. Okay, so how are you guys ranking D. Smith, Waddle, Sanders? I'm going to Theo first because I feel like Theo's mad at me. I've been kind of going to Chris and Dan. Early.
No, not at all. Not at all.
No, but he's basically asking, looking at receivers, D. Smith, Waddle, Sanders, and Visca, rest of season. Also, if you have any combination of them on the same team, are you playing matchups, or are some of these guys staying in no matter what? So basically saying, do you have a must play out of these guys, and how do you rank them, I guess is what he's asking.
Well, I think right now, for this week, for me, it's Manny Sanders. Manny Sanders is outscoring Stephon Diggs right now. He looks explosive. He's a big part of one of the best offenses in football. For the season, I'm hopeful that the Devonta Smith big games are coming. I think he looks really, really good. And I think that offense is not running the ball, and I think that Smith is going to have a breakout game soon. Waddle's been kind of mixed for me. I think he looks very talented. He left points on the board last weekend, and then they do this. He's not getting the downfield targets that I expected, but he'll get touches. And Visca was disappointing usage. Very disappointing usage last weekend. I'm not sure what the coaching staff is doing with him. So I'll say, if of all these guys, I'd probably like to have Smith for the season, but Sanders definitely for the next few weeks.
Dan, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good way to put it. I mean, Sanders is one of those guys you're just going to put in your lineup and keep him there until he gives you a reason not to. And I totally agree with Theo. Devonta Smith is getting a ton of volume. There's been some plays that have been just so close, to breaking a big long reception for a touchdown or just a big long reception. It's coming for him. And so I'm going to keep sticking him in there. Waddle has been a little bit more, as Theo said, hit and miss. And the main problem he's got right now is his quarterback. Jacoby Brissett just is not the kind of quarterback that he needs to succeed. And with Chenault, I'm starting to, he's really on my bench right now unless I'm just in a bad spot. Because they've kicked him outside. They're using Agnew, blanking on his first name, Jamal Agnew, is it? Yeah, they're using him in the old Laviska role, and now they're putting Laviska more out wide, and it's just not really going too well for him out there. I don't know, if he's just having trouble with the better cornerbacks that he's facing up against, or if it's the type of routes he's just not used to running. But I need to see something from where I'm going to put him in my lineup.
Chris, were you a Sanders or a Gabriel guy coming into the season in Buffalo?
Sanders. I threw him on the on a bunch of teams at the end. He was basically free. So it was a nice little ad to throw on. That wide receiver 6, take a shot. And, I have to steadily put him in my lineup, get him in my flex spot these last couple of weeks and going forward. But to answer this question, yeah, it's Sanders, but Devontae Smith this week, you got to put him in that lineup versus that Tampa Bay secondary. It is a disaster. So that's close, neck and neck, those two. Visca would definitely be fourth on this list. I don't know what you do as a Visca owner now and going forward. That's a tough situation. I know he's burned a lot of people across this industry because if you guys remember, he was one of the hottest names in drafts. People couldn't move him up fast enough in the high stakes market. That's a collective whiff. We all, we got to raise our hands as the high stakes players, on Laviska Shenault on draft season because that did not work out so far through 5 weeks.
Another example for me of buy the rumor and sell the news, right? Like, and you see it just over and over. ODB, and another example, or OBJ. I always call him ODB for some reason. OBJ, another example of that. Like, you learn that in investments, and it carries over very nicely in fantasy football. And I've applied it, so far this year, and it's paid off every time. I know we're 65 minutes in. Chris, you have a curfew. We won't keep you too late, but
no bedtime tonight, guys.
Nice.
All right.
No bedtime.
All right, nice. So let's move into. We started something here. Keep the questions coming, by the way, guys. We in the chat. We started fake news, which is kind of a fun thing we do. Just looking at different players or situations. Dan, why don't you start this off? What's a situation or player right now that you're wondering, is this fake news or is this something we can hold on to?
So yeah, I think Darrell Williams is obviously going to be one of those players that everybody's talking about. Is he going to be the guy? I'm not horribly, this might be because I don't have really hardly any Darrell Williams anywhere, but I don't really see it. He just doesn't look great to me. He'll probably do okay, but look at what Clyde Edwards-Helaire was doing in that role, and he was a better player than Darrell Williams in a lot of ways, and he just wasn't doing that much with it. So it's a little bit tough to invest in Darrell Williams as being any kind of a big league winner or anything like that. You guys agree with that, or do you think I'm way off base there?
I agree with you. I mean, he doesn't get me that excited. He's kind of a jag that Andy Reid seems to like, and he's stuck with the Chiefs. I think that the one argument would be is that he's got familiarity with the offense, and he will see somewhat of a role. I'm interested to see what McKinnon does. If both guys are available, maybe it's a shallow league. You could probably get McKinnon for free, and Williams is going to go for 20+% in some of these leagues. So he does not get me that excited. I just don't see him putting up the numbers to justify a massive fab bid.
I think the Chiefs' offense is going to turn into Philadelphia on steroids. With it might be less than 5 carries a game. For the Chiefs, it just might be Mahomes in the shotgun and let it fly, and beat people like that. But on the flip side, I'll say this, exactly what I said earlier. The running back landscape is so bad that if you look down at your bench and Darrell Williams is sitting there, hey, it's time to flex him. I think, get 12 PPR points, let him catch 4 balls for 40 yards. Maybe he falls in the end zone too on the 1-yard line. He'll be out there. I think McKinnon will play the third down role. And if you get the Chiefs running back who's going to play 70% of the snaps or something like that, if you can put them out there, yeah, absolutely. Hey, we do it. We do it at the wide receiver position on the same team for McCole Hardman. Everybody keeps going back to the well going, hey, he's on the Chiefs. He's a third option in the pass game. It's going to happen sooner or later. Well, here's the running back version, Darrell Williams. I think you got to play him this week.
Not us, right, Dan? We learned we learned Hardman the hard way last year. We just don't even go near him anymore. I don't even have any Hardman. It's beautiful.
Yeah, guys, real quick, I was asked on my show, my co-host Nando DeFino over at The Athletic, are you finally done? Last week he asked, are you finally giving up and throwing the towel in on McCole Hardman? And I said, absolutely, I'm done. Wash my hands, never even looking at him again. On the few teams that I have him, that's it. I want to drop him, but I can't Because if Tyreek Hill goes down or Kelsey goes down, he's back in my good graces, right? And he's back in our lineup. And then he comes out this past week. He catches, 9 balls, 70-something yards. Tyreek Hill pops up on the injury report now with a bulky knee. And all of a sudden, hey, it's McCole Hardman season all over again.
True.
Yep. Yeah, and I guess getting back to Darrell Williams, the best thing he has going for him is that he doesn't have to share carries with Darrell Williams. So,
yeah. And now I was going to say, he's given us 4 years now. He's had 1 top 12 and 4 top 24 finishes, but then there's Mike Davis, so we don't know, right, what these guys are gonna do in these offenses when they get the opportunity, because if any position depends on opportunity, it's the running back position. So who knows? Theo?
It's very interesting with the Marlon Mack, the little rumor out there of Marlon Mack to Kansas City. I don't know if you guys saw that one today, but it would that would be a very interesting one. At the trade deadline, I think Mack could be a real thing for that offense,
especially after flashing on Monday Night Football. His the price is now a little higher if that happens.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll throw out Bobby Trees. Are we feeling we're feeling great about him after last week, or is there any apprehension that it could be,
or is this a trap,
or is this a McVay exploits a matchup type thing and overfeeds the guy in this particular week and he slides back, or is he firmly in that comfortable upper level wide receiver 2 for you guys?
He's a wide receiver 2 for me in this offense.
Yeah.
I still think Kupp is the guy I'd rather have over Woods. I don't think last week changed my mind on that. The chemistry that Stafford has with Kupp is unmatchable, but squeaky wheel got the grease last week, and they gave Woods some of Kupp's routes last week, and he's running all over the field wide open. This offense can support 3 solid offensive players. I'm still waiting on Van Jefferson he's flashed in some of these games. I still think Van Jefferson is flex worthy if you hit on the right week. So yeah, definitely Robert Woods is wide receiver 2 going forward.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think it's a no-brainer at this point. I think that if you're able to buy low on Robert Woods, it was a huge get, because he looks great and there's no reason to think it's going to stop. I think both those guys will end up somewhere in the couple end up in the top 5, and Woods will probably end up in potentially the top 15 at the end of the year, the way that offense is looking.
Yeah.
Yeah, the main thing that Van Jefferson needs is for Deshaun Jackson to go away.
Yeah. But Van Jefferson is just that piece that you need to keep on your bench.
Mm-hmm.
And, if Robert Woods ever went down, or I don't even want to say Cooper Kupp because of how much Cooper Kupp I have, but either one of those top 2 go down, Van Jefferson steps into going from sitting on your bench and rotting to hello league winner wide receiver 2, in my opinion. He's that lotto ticket at the wide receiver position.
And Kupp just came off like a pretty serious injury too. Let's let him enjoy the field a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Let's go back to our questions, guys. Hero non-zero, because I've said it on here. Rondell Moore, my number 1 owned piece on the FFPC, and obviously Dan and Theo, big fans of Rondell Moore. He's a brand #GOAT District rookie, especially. So why don't we just do a quick feeler around the board here on where we are in Rondell Moore? Because we saw big flash, then we saw no flash. Now people are wondering, what do we do? Whether it's this season moving forward. Obviously Dynasty is a little different, I would imagine, but I don't think there's that much concern there. But guys, how do we feel about Rondell Moore rest of season? Dan?
Yeah, probably the Max Williams injury is going to work out to his advantage. We don't like to see players get injured, but I think that's only going to help more. And just getting more experience. He's still doing some things like, he runs out of bounds and then comes back in, or, he just, he's had some issues where he's just not quite there, but he's got flashes as well. I think the worst thing he's got going for him is he's just not a great run blocker. And the Cardinals do look for their wide receivers to run block. So he's going to be a little bit more of a gadget player, I think, still all throughout this year. But if they can consistently find him touches, I mean, he's a guy that can do a lot with them.
Yeah, I think that they'll be in 4 wide a little more now, and I think that Rondell, I mean, he looks tremendous. When he gets an opportunity to flash, you know, he's just such a talented player. You know, we talk about teams kind of self-scouting, you know, increasing usage for the guys that are flashing. I could see Rondell going up, but like Dan said, you know, he's still 4th in snaps for the wide receivers this past week. So it's kind of hard to trust him on a weekly basis, but it's really a tempting guy to just stick in the flex based on, you know, his talent level.
Chris, is this just a matter of adjusting your expectations for these guys, similar to the guy you just talked about?
Yeah, I think coming into the year, the expectations were a lot higher. Nobody expected AJ Green to you know, produce what he's been producing. But I you know, Dan makes a great point with Max Williams now coming out of this offense. Maybe they don't even, you know, go get a tight end or use one, and they put the extra wide receiver out on the field a lot more, and his snaps go up. So maybe now I've been down on him the last couple of weeks. I thought he was just somebody you were going to have to, you know, guess the right week where he was going to blow up, and then you're going to have to get started. What was it, like 3 weeks ago, guys, that I remember he came off his huge week. Everybody was all in. Start him. He's automatically in everyone's lineup that week, and he gave 2 points, and it was, oh, boy. You know, everybody got burned by him. So I think that's what was going to happen the rest of the year. But now this Max Williams injury has me maybe thinking a little differently on him, but I still think it'll be a roller coaster wide. But after this year, that's a big time buy for dynasty leagues and everything like that. I'll be investing in more for, you know, the foreseeable future in redraft going forward.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, like any of these young prospects, especially the rookies that you're high in coming into the season, you're just waiting for these guys to have down weeks so you can go and buy them for next, you know, and it's all about managing your expectations. You shouldn't be, and I was even going to touch on, you talked about, you know, going all in after week 2 or whatever. Don't adjust your whole roster construction over a rookie going off in the first 3 weeks and say, oh, I got myself a new wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 1, and you go and sell off, you know, a significant piece like a Keenan Allen, or maybe didn't perform or something, you know, like something like that. Like, don't make drastic moves on your roster, man, in those first 3-4 weeks, especially when it comes to the rookie, especially receivers, you know, in an offense where, you know, that ball is going to be going all over the place each week to week.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's Jamar Chase, and then just pay anything you can to get him.
Yeah, buddy. Those Jamar Chase Burrow stacks are just beautiful. They just sing to me on a weekly basis.
Yeah, guys, I remember when I was on with you guys the first time over the summer, and we were gushing about Jamar Chase, all 4 of us, about how much we loved him, and man, times that by 100 now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolute stud.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable how good he looks.
And it was so nice to get, you know, that he had those drops. And
I was just going to say, buy the dip,
people.
Buy the dip. Buy that dip, yo.
That sent him down 2 rounds, those drops and being scared. I mean, unbelievable buy on the board the last couple of weeks of drafts.
Yeah, the high-stakes community was correct on him when early draft started. He was going in the 4th round, and then everybody kind of hive mentality where he dropped, and yeah, 6th round Jamar Chase is pretty awesome. And, you know, this time, you know, next summer, it's going to be talking about, you know, do I take Jamar Chase like 10th overall, or, you know, hope that he gets to me at 15 or something like that.
Yeah.
I think one thing people have to keep in mind the reason we like to bring in the high stakes, the people who are successful at high stakes, is because of the volume they usually play, and because of the amount of years they've been playing. The experience becomes a tool. It becomes a weapon, you know, and that's where guys can identify themes and patterns a lot quicker than maybe someone who's been playing Dynasty for a year or 2 or Fantasy for, you know, a year or 2 versus a few decades. And I think that's in those scenarios, we're all just sitting around saying, please, you know, keep talking about him dropping the ball, and I'll just keep buying the dip. He's going to be just fine. You know, like we haven't even hit his rookie season yet. You guys are panicking. You know what I mean? So I think that's one other reason why we keep bringing in the guests we do, because of that value that's expressed. So let's do a quick, rapid fire if we can. We'll try here. I got to bring my boy Debo up. I'm a big fan of the boy, especially in Dynasty. He was such a good value coming into the season. Is he a wide receiver now, Chris? And then I have a little offer sitting in an inbox that I want to run by you guys with Debo.
I think you broke up. Is he a wide receiver or what?
One.
The rest of season, wide receiver 1, I can't commit to that, honestly. I think he'll fall into that wide receiver 2 range. I think it's been a great 5 weeks for Debo. I think he's top 6 right now, but I think that'll slide a little bit. Not the biggest Jimmy G fan. And, I think, listen, he was a great buy on the board for where he was going. One of the biggest steals on the draft board, but let's put a wide receiver 2 tag on him for fantasy rest of the way.
So you know what? I'll throw this out before I pass to the boys. You guys can answer as we go around. So you selling him for like maybe a mid to late first and an early third?
Super flex,
tight end preem.
Okay. Yeah. Super flex. Then I think so. But that first that you were getting for him, it was a 2023 first, was it?
No, 22. They're both 22 picks.
They're okay, both 22s. Yeah, I mean, I think that's certainly a deal you can make. I mean, it depends on, if you're not competing, then it's probably a deal you want to make. If you're competing, it's pretty hard to let go of Debo right now. Somebody would have to kind of bowl me over with an offer, I think.
For sure. This is more, I know a lot of people are holding Debo, and either it's a surprise and maybe they didn't expect to contend. And now they have this piece, and yeah, for sure, it's going to help them. But a lot of people have them on their rosters and they're maybe not contending. And now's a really good opportunity to still buy, like Chris said, if those targets and that, the ball gets passed around a little more, then maybe that value and that opportunity to sell high disappears a little quicker than we expect. So I'm just saying it might be a good time to.
I mean, do we really think George Kittle is going to continue? I mean, I know we don't have him now. He's going on IR for the next 3 weeks. But is George Kittle really going to not turn this season around and become George Kittle and take the targets and yards and everything that Debo's taken advantage of with Kittle with the slow start? Is this really going to continue? I can't buy into that. Theo, I know you said early on you've been disappointed with him. You weren't in on him. I was completely out on Kittle this year, but in one high stakes draft, he landed into the middle of the 4th round, and my receivers were off the board that I wanted. And I said, you know what? Now's the time to take the one Kittle share in case I'm wrong. And I lose sleep over it now, because there's nothing worse than taking a guy in a big draft that you weren't in on just because he fell there, and we still fall into that trap. Everybody does.
It's a good point.
I usually avoid doing that. If I'm out on a guy, I'm out. But if you play enough volume, you say, let me grab one share just in case I'm wrong there. And I wish I would have sat out completely.
Yeah, me too. Debo's an interesting one, especially for Dynasty. We've talked about it on the GOAT District a number of times. Is even if it feels like the wrong move, when you think you're selling at the guy's peak value, cashing out is oftentimes the right move. You can't get so attached to, the guy. It's the value he could bring back. Debo before the season was not getting you a first-round pick in any league. Now in some non-superflex leagues, if you're a contender, you would trade a first plus for Debo. He might be that missing piece. So it's really hard to let go of a guy producing at a very high level, but it's sometimes the pragmatic move. So if you think Debo is the kind of guy that can have multiple wide receiver 1 years or multiple top 15 years, I'm not sure that he's that kind of guy. I think that he was getting the downfield targets this year. It's been kind of a perfect storm. Ayuk disappeared. Mostert went out. Kittle was, injured and kind of a, weird usage for him. It's been as good of a 5-game stretch as you can imagine for Debo. And he was bailed out a little bit this past week by the rushing attempt touchdown. So, it might be time to sell in a dynasty league, but redraft, I'm very comfortable with him. I think if he's not a wide receiver 1, he'll be close to it. I think he's, a top 15 kind of guy right now. And, with Kittle out, we talk about when Kittle comes back, I think, he'll get Kittle usage. But right now, Debo's kind of the only show in town, so he'll continue to be featured. So it's a tough one, JD. It's a tough one.
Yeah. All right, guys, we got 3 names left on the fake news segment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw one at each of you as we close this out. Chris, always a blast, man. You always bring tons of goodness. I honestly, we did an hour and a half. We didn't touch on a few things. We could go on for a while, but we always appreciate the time you give us, the goodness you drop. Remind the people where they can find everything you got to offer, that you're dropping, that you're producing out there at The Athletic. And why don't you, I'll throw this one at you. Jameis Winston, a QB1?
Oh, God, no. Oh, God, no. No, I'm not signing up for that Jameis Winston QB1 season. I'll take a hard pass on that. Yeah, send that down the line, JD. I'm not a Jameis. He's had those couple good games this past week, included with the 4 touchdowns, but maybe he'll be useful when Michael Thomas comes back into this offense. But until then, I still can't trust him. Taysom Hill, he's going to play too much of a factor. And there's nothing worse than getting down inside the 10 and seeing your quarterback come off the field and Taysom Hill come in. So right off the bat, I'm out. If you're taking my quarterback on the field when I enter the red zone for as many times as I can get to the red zone, no thank you. So absolutely not QB1 season.
He's Chris Vaccaro at Chris Vaccaro GST on the Twitter machine. Check out his goodness on the regular at The Athletic.
I forgot to plug myself there, JD. I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
so thanks for doing it for me. Yeah, you can catch my article every Thursday. It comes out on The Athletic. I go through, what's going on around the league. I try and touch on all the fantasy players and games as much as I can. A little quick review of the previous week and, a preview of the upcoming week. And, the podcast with Nando DeFino, Brandon Marianne Lee is every Wednesday. The Athletic Fantasy Pod. So thanks.
Yeah, we got to get Brandon and Marion back on the show. She's a great guest. No, we love what you guys are doing over there at The Athletic, man. Keep it up. It's a ton of fun. And again, thank you for jumping back in the district.
Absolute pleasure, man. And anytime. Loved chopping it up with you 3.
Yep.
No, absolutely. And I highly recommend Chris's pod and also his article. A lot of people tuning into the GOAT District like the high stakes stuff. Chris is giving it from the high stakes perspective. There's some very, very useful stuff in the podcast and in the article. It's top notch work, and we highly recommend it.
Yep, definitely. Seconded.
100%. He's Theo at the OG Fantasy. He's at Overhyped Sleeper with no E on the end. But, doesn't mean you're getting any less value because the goodness keeps coming from those two on the weekly. And the privilege is mine to hang with them. And our guest, as usual, is awesome. So smash that like. If you, if you got anything tonight, you appreciate, you want to show your support for the show, check out Viridian Global for any GOAT gear. I've got my True North tee on tonight. You've seen my GOAT hat is somewhere in the background. Go check it out, guys, whether it's our show or any of your favorite fantasy football shows. Even if it's not a podcast or a show, they've got, your favorite players on there. They got a bunch of good stuff, Will and Mark over there at Viridian Global. So go check them out. And myffpc.com, guys. As usual, we talk high stakes because that's a place we play as the FFPC. That's where all the goodness is. That's where you can win 6 digits and make your wife or girlfriend love fantasy football as much as you do by winning it. Just ask our boy Abib, who was on last week. And guys, go check out those past shows because we keep bringing the monster guests on the regular. What else we got? I think that's it, guys. Actually, you know what? Just a little, if you're listening right now, we are looking to add a member or 2 to the team. So if you think you've got what it takes, you're winning out there, you're crushing your leagues out there. Maybe you got some goodness, you're dropping articles, some videos, reach out to us. Maybe you produce or do some graphic work. Just reach out to us, man. We're always looking for some quality teammates, some G unit members for the GOAT district, so we can keep bringing it. And guys, go get that week 6 win, that W, because it's we're getting into the mid, the girth of the season. So hopefully we help you guys tonight, and we can keep helping you bring the W's, and we'll just check you all.
GOAT district, the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden, they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT district, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's the and I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them.